Hey, gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, and today I'm joined by my good friend Rich Bliss from Ready Project Food Supply. Rich has assembled some of the best, nutritious, well balanced, long term food supplies in the industry, and he wants to make sure that everyone out there understands the importance of food security in these unprecedented economic and geopolitical times. Now, if you're like me, you've been putting preparedness and food security off, procrastinating, right? Well, no more, right? Just click on that link below and procrastination ends. That's the beauty of it. GetReadyWithSteve.com is my special website. And if you go there right now, for a limited time, you're going to be able to save big time on a 1-month emergency food supply. So, Rich, welcome, my friend. It's great to have you here.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Dr. Steve. It's a pleasure. Honor to be here with you. Thank you for having us on.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And I love what you guys do so much. Could you give us a bit of your backstory of how you got involved in preparedness? Again, I to my shame, until I met you guys, I always was, I was a procrastinator. And thanks to you, now I have a food supply. So tell us how you even got involved.
Sure. Yeah, that's kind of our goal, right? To take the pain out of the whole process. But yeah, a little bit about my background. I actually grew up upstate New York on a dairy farm. You know, my dad farmed. And you know this is kind of an important background because it's kind of what drove me into the industry without really knowing. It just kind of became part of my DNA. You know, we grew up with milking cows, and we had acres of farm where we grew a little bit of everything. My father hunted. We would prepare and store the meat. My mother would can fruits. We had fruit trees, and in a way, and I didn't really know anything different. I spent a lot of my childhood weeding gardens and driving a tractor, but I didn't really know anything different, right? Like until I was older and went off to college and started a business and moved into the suburbs. I now live here in Utah with my wife and kids. And it wasn't until I became a dad really that it was like, hey, the world has changed. We don't live the same way. We're one generation away from, I think it was our parents that, this, really lived more of a self-reliant lifestyle. And a lot of that has, a lot of just the changes in our culture and in our country and internationally has really, we used to be a country focused on manufacturing and agriculture. And, we've become more of a society that's dedicated to the service industry. And, we still, agriculture is still a big part of what we do, but advances in technology has just changed. It's changed things a lot.
Yeah.
It's
so interesting too. You talk about New York, because a lot of people, when they hear New York, they only think Manhattan or the 5 boroughs, or Albany, and blue, the bluest of blue. Say, I'm from Connecticut. A lot of people don't realize. I mean, New York is just it's basically a red state with these strange blue blots around this 2 cities that kind of control the politics around there. But I mean, New York is one of the most beautiful areas, pastoral, lovely areas, rural areas of faith, family, and freedom. And there's definitely that farming culture there. I mean, you border up on Canada, and all that. It's just so beautiful.
Yeah, you got the Adirondack Mountains. There's a lot of country. In fact,
that's the side of New York a lot of people don't know exists.
In fact, right across the street from where I grew up, there's a massive 60-acre greenhouse, and it just kind of shows like this is where things have headed. Right, you've got one farmer, in Nebraska farming tens of thousands of acres with equipment while his kids play video games, right? Inside, and that kind of, you can see how that kind of leads into why our supply chain can be a bit fickle. We become so reliant on
precarious, tenuous.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't mind me pivoting to that side of things, I know a lot of our viewers are interested in what you think, but I mean, we've seen a slew of news stories in the past year or so that really indicate some very strange, very critical issues on our food infrastructure. So we saw, for example, earlier this spring, 20,000 plus cows killed in an explosion on a dairy farm. And we've seen comparable catastrophes with egg and poultry facilities in particular. I mean, what's your take on all that? And are we right to be concerned about this kind of stuff?
These are great questions. And, I've been doing this. We've been in this industry specifically. I've been doing, food and supplements for over 25 years, and specifically the food industry and emergency preparedness foods for about 16 years. And we've watched, being on this side of it, where we're purchasing food, we're sourcing ingredients, and watching all of the different factors that have an impact. And a lot of this, you don't really see it, right? You don't
Right.
feel the effects until something, fairly large has an impact on it as a consumer. But on the back end, companies like us, we deal with this, daily. And I think that it's a complex thing. There's a host of factors that can have an impact. You've got, like we were just briefly touched on, there's been consolidation and centralization of farming and distribution. We've got really long and complex supply chains now. Things aren't just sourced from, you've got one farmer that's growing all the almonds, and then you've got,
Right.
I could give you one example. We've got, there's a handful of different products that we've had shortages on for years. And, I imagine many of your listeners might not even be aware of this, as, when you go through the drive-through, there's always plenty of French fries. But, we've been in a potato shortage for the last 3 years, and, we can't get them. You just can't
Right.
get them.
Right.
It's sold out for years in advance. We used to have a lot of entrees that had potatoes. And this last year, we actually had to retool. My partner, he cringes when I say this, that we did it, but some of his favorite entrees that we have were potato based. We kept one, and we struggle to keep that in stock. Even
Right.
that.
Right.
A lot of the potatoes that you see on the market are imported from China. And,
Right.
and we decided as a company, we weren't going to do that. And so we had to make some tweaks and changes. But there are these really fragile, I would say, systems. They're very smart systems, and they're done well, but we've moved to like just in time inventory. It works
Right.
great as long as there's no hiccups, right?
If
Like
there's no
as long
hiccups,
as
right?
everything's moving perfectly.
No
Yeah.
disruptions. Yeah.
The minute anything happens, you feel it. We've got global dependencies on other countries now for
Yeah.
our food. There's infrastructure and logistic challenges. There's food, safety concerns. We've got changing consumer demands even that are driving
Right.
what farmers decide to make. You've got these niche, everyone wants organic, 100 different varieties of
Right.
rice, and
Right.
that all filters back to farmers because this is what consumers are saying they want, and that can have an impact. That's not necessarily a bad thing, right? It's good to have
Right.
diversity, but when you shift away from some of these bulk ingredients that are
Mhm.
difficult to produce, when there is something that affects the supply chain, it just has a big impact on everyone.
Yeah, I noticed sriracha at the stores. I did a Google search actually right before this interview,
Yeah,
and I found one of the most searched phrases right now is there a sriracha shortage,
shortage.
or has sriracha been discontinued? Right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's so obviously people are seeing it. They're getting it, and you have to find it in these tiny little niches. But so, how fragile is the distribution system in the United States really, and how does that fragility affect my personal ability to feed my family when all is said and done?
Um, you know, it's when I say it's fragile because of how complex it is.
Right.
And anything that becomes so complex and dependent on a fewer players, when those players are affected, it affects everyone. It's,
Snowballs. Yeah.
yeah, there's just no way around it. When COVID was a good example of what
Oh
happened,
my. Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
we had surpluses of foods that were getting plowed under the ground just because we had no distribution to get them off the fields.
Right.
We didn't have a way to process it. We had shortages in other areas. Right now, we've got a shortage of corn, potatoes, lettuce, tomatoes, avocado, broccoli, cauliflower. There's all these things that we just can't get. You just can't get, and there's so many different things that affect that. And then once you move into supply chain and logistics of just moving that around, I mean,
Mm,
what happened? Everything that gets to your house came there, or to your grocery store, got there on a truck, right, or a
right.
train, and then
Right.
it went on a truck, and diesel still fuels these trucks, right? Everyone's not driving Tesla trucks across the country,
Right.
so if as an impact on diesel prices can have a
Yep.
huge impact on the
Food
logistics of,
prices. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I look back at COVID, and I consider myself pretty prepared, at
Right.
home, and we've got a warehouse full of supplies. But one thing that caught me off guard was the toilet paper.
Yeah. Isn't
You know,
that was so fascinating, that
I
shortage.
got suckered. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was in
Yeah.
trouble. We ran out, but
Just use the New York Times.
yeah, not yeah, exactly. Not again. I learned my lesson, and we've stocked up on things like that. But
Right.
yeah, I don't think it used to be. So yeah, if you roll back like 16 years to when we started the company, um, really, when I saw like the way that we lived, we moved into a society that really is based on instant gratification, right? Everything has to be instant. And it's
Right.
even more so than when I was a kid. Like, we grew up with drive-through banking and fast food. And now you've got DoorDash and Instagram, and it's just a whole nother level of instantaneous, gratification. And I think we as a society have kind of moved away from this principle of self-reliance.
Right. Right.
And really, Ready Project was a movement, a grassroots movement to help reinstill this concept of, self-reliance that, I don't want to jump on a long tangent, but I think that freedom really demands self-reliance. You can't have it without it.
Of course. Right.
Right. Like the
Right.
minute you want someone else to provide everything for you, someone will always be there
Right.
to say,
Right.
sure,
Right.
yes, we'll give it to you. But it's
And
always
and then your freedom is contingent on them having that power over you.
right
Your freedom in quotes, of course. Yeah.
we'll give you whatever you want. There's going to be something given in return, and generally,
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
going to be your freedom. So
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, it is, and that's what makes America great, right? We're traditionally a people that have been self-reliant, and I think that was the motivation behind really starting this movement, was to help educate. Today we're talking a lot about food, and that's at the core of being reliant. These are the things we need to live and to survive, right?
The
Like,
Maslow
yeah,
hierarchy of
yeah,
needs.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
My partner Ted, and he was on your show before,
Yeah.
and he talks about the pillars of preparedness, of being
Yeah.
proactively prepared. You've got air, which obviously everyone needs. Water, food, shelter, equipment, and knowledge. And so food is really at the forefront of the very basics of what you need to do, right?
Right.
It's like water and food.
Right.
Yeah. If you don't have that, there's
Yeah.
not, you don't have much of
nothing else follows.
Exactly.
Exactly.
You're
It's really that simple, right?
Yeah.
If you're not surviving, none of your other goals are going to happen. But that's actually, again, that's really good, because again, I'm using myself as an example here, since I still consider myself very much a neophyte on preparedness and so forth, but at least I'm getting there. Give us the basics here. So a lot of us want to be prepared. A lot of people are watching right now. They do not have an emergency food supply or anything like that. They don't know where to start. So let's start with the basics. How much emergency food supply should I have on hand, let's say for a family of four?
Sure. First, I think, it's important to look at how much do you, what's a good amount of food to have on hand, right? Like if a disaster or there's an interruption in supply chain, with all of these host of different things that can interrupt your food supply, what is wise to have? What is a good idea? I personally, we like to teach, start small and then work towards a year's worth of
Okay.
supplies.
Okay.
But I think at its very base, you should have at least 1 to 3 months
Okay.
worth of food. I think that you need more than you think you need.
Right. Right.
We base the kits, and we've done this. We've got this really special, promotion that we've done specifically for your listeners. I think you'll have a link here below. But
Absolutely.
yeah, we put these kits together as a really solid base for someone. Either you've got a bunker full of food. This is a great addition to that. Or if you're just getting started, this is these are great kits to help you kind of get started. We've already worked out the macros. These are all ingredients that have been picked because they have long-term shelf stability. They've been packaged, using the latest technology and long-term, shelf life, processes. So we've kind of taken all the hard work out of it. And these are good, solid bases for any food storage program, right? Like,
And you guys, they last about like 25 years, don't they? I mean,
yeah,
this is not something that expires in 6 months here.
Right. Yeah. You want to store it in a cool, dry place, and you can enjoy a really long shelf life of a lot of these ingredients. So, yeah.
And I think, do I recall correctly, is every meal around 2,000 calories?
Yeah. What we do is we base it on kind of the RDA of 2,000 calories per day. And then, I think in these kits, we have an average of just over 50 calories of protein per day. You've got fats you have to be very careful with because we want to make sure that they store. So we've all of this has been picked specifically for a solid, vegetarian food storage base. And so, the idea is like, these are recipes that you could create, 15 different ways. So you're not going to get sick of having a lot of this on hand.
Right.
Right. So,
Right.
Maybe you're a hunter. This is a great way for you to consume the meat or the fish that you bring in, right? Like, these are all good basic entrees and recipes that are super versatile.
But what would you say so we have a lot of hunters and fishermen who watch the channel. What would you say to them and say, well, I don't need a food supply. I'm a hunter. I'm a fisherman, right?
Sure.
Why do I need an emergency food supply?
One, I would say, so my dad was a hunter, every year, even on the farm, we slaughtered cattle and stored that meat. My dad would hunt. We would store the venison. No waste at all. We'd have rabbits in the garden. He would shoot those, and guess what was on the table? It was rabbit stew, right? So it was, I think that hunting is a fantastic skill. And if you can learn it, I think you should. And if you have access to somewhere where you can actually hunt, maybe if you live somewhere where you can, not everyone lives up in Montana and has access to lots of land where you can hunt. But I would say, yes, fantastic skill to have, but difficult to rely on for sustainable food supply.
And you're not the only one who will be hunting.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's the uncertainty of your catch. I mean,
right.
You're not always going to be successful. Hunting is seasonal, right?
Right.
It's not, you can't have it year round. You've got weather conditions. Right. There's in a survival situation, hunting is hard. Anyone who's hunted, right? Like my partner, TJ, he's an avid hunter. Hunting, you expend a lot of energy. It is a lot of work. I mean, watch any of these survival shows where they send these experts out to survive for a month. And
I know.
And look at how sustainable it is. It is not an easy skill. There are people that are amazing at it and they can pull it off. But for the average American, I would look at it as a way to supplement the food that you have. Right. It's an excellent skill to have. Get your food, get a solid base of food storage. And then use those skills to supplement it. I think that's a fantastic way to approach it. But yeah, I mean, if you go back and watch that interview with TJ and it's fantastic because he talks about how, I mean, just think about it right now, hunting permits are already capped.
Yeah.
And imagine a situation now where people don't have food.
Right.
One, do you think it's going to be a free for all?
Right.
Would the government just let everyone just run out and completely decimate, the wildlife? Because I mean, right now it's already regulated to protect the numbers.
Right.
And if everyone's out there doing it, it'd be like, it's kind of like grocery stores, right? Grocery stores only stock, 2 or 3 days of inventory under normal demand. You throw in a crisis and they've got hours of inventory. That's right. Right. You can't depend on that. You can't depend in an emergency situation or an economic failure or war. There's all of these different things that can happen. You can't depend on supply chain to support you when it happens, right? Don't be, you don't want to be that guy that waited. And then that adds insult to injury. That's
absolutely.
We saw that with COVID, and I was one of them. I went to try to get my toilet paper.
Right. Right.
But I think the problem that can cause is if you have the ability to do it now, you should, right?
Exactly.
Because
be proactive.
Yeah, be proactively prepared. And I think that if you wait, the problem that also causes, the people that are hurt the most when that happens, it's the single mom that's got 5 kids.
Definitely.
Right. She is living day to day. She doesn't have the resources to have, the food storage on hand. Right. Maybe she's trying, but she just can't do it. And when there's a rush on all of the, on groceries and supplies, when something actually happens because we didn't do something about it beforehand when we could have, those are the people that hurt the worst. So I think there's a responsibility not only to yourself and to your family, but to your community to do this. Because those that are prepared, not just families, not just individuals, but when communities are prepared, we'll get through these crises with far less pain, right?
And they become the leaders in just such a crisis. Yep, absolutely. Gang, you heard it. Rich said it best. No more procrastination. Today is the day. This is your opportunity. It doesn't get easier or more affordable than this. Just click on that link below right now. That's it. And you're 99% there. You've taken a gigantic leap in preparedness and food security for you, for your loved ones. I did it. And you're going to feel so amazing once you've gotten through this. And to make it even better, if you click on that link below right now, you're going to save big time on a 1-month emergency food supply, just like Rich told us to stock up on. So start there, start with that month, and then just build on that. It's all at my special website, getreadywithsteve.com, available just by clicking on that link below. Rich, it's been an honor, man. Thanks so much for making it so easy and affordable to get prepared.
Our pleasure. That's what we're here for.